Tragically, many women abducted and held captive by murderers are unable to escape their attackers, resulting in their horrifying and senseless deaths. However, some very courageous and lucky women and girls were brave and fortunate enough to survive their close encounters with sadistic murderers and serial killers. Whether it's due to good fortune, remarkable intelligence, or an unending determination, or some combination of the three, these women who survived creepy killer scenarios became real-life heroines after their close brushes with death. While these women who avoided being murdered were undoubtedly left with physical, emotional, and psychological scars, they came away from their shockingly scary experiences with some incredible stories of survival. On September 29, 1978, in Berkeley, California, 15 years old Mary Vincent accepted a ride from Larry Singleton, a 51-year-old merchant seaman. However, instead of taking the teenager to her destination, Singleton raped Vincent, used an hatchet to cut off both of her forearms, and tossed their body off a 30-foot cliff near Modesto, California. While Singleton left the teenager for dead, Vincent pulled herself back up the cliff, eventually getting the help of a passing motorist who took her to a hospital for urgent medical care. Several months after nearly ending Vincent's life, Singleton was convicted of rape, kidnapping, attempted murder, mayhem, and oral sodomy, and he was given the maximum sentence at the time, 14 years and 4 months. Incredibly, after serving just 8 years behind bars, Singleton was released on parole and eventually relocated to Tampa, Florida. On February 19, 1997, one of Singleton's neighbors called the police and reported a struggle at Singleton's home. Law enforcement officers responded and found the elderly convict covered in blood and the lifeless body of Roxanne Hayes, a mother of 3, on the floor of his home. In 1998, Singleton was tried and convicted of stabbing Hayes to death, and Mary Vincent, whose prosthetic arms were a silent testament to Singleton's brutality, appeared at his sentencing hearing to testify about the depraved and ruthless attack he subjected her to when she was only 15 years old. Singleton was given the death sentence for killing Hayes, but he died in a prison hospital in 2001. In the years after she was mutilated and left for dead by Singleton, Vincent went on to create an organization, the Mary Vincent Foundation, to help other survivors of violent crimes become a mother and embark on a career as an artist, making her an inspiration to many. In the early hours of July 5, 1985, Richard Ramirez entered 16-year-old Whitney Bennett's bedroom through an unlocked window. He attacked the teenager with a tire iron and strangled her in the Sierra Madre, California, home she shared with her parents. When she regained consciousness, Whitney screamed for her parents, who promptly got their daughter the medical help she needed to save her life. While Ramirez, who was dubbed the Night Stalker for the brutal murders he committed in and around Los Angeles and San Francisco, stole some of the teenager's jewelry, he left behind a bloody footprint law enforcement used to link the attack to his other crimes. The following month, Ramirez was apprehended and, in 1989, Bennett testified at his trial. She provided valuable testimony against the man who tried to murder her. Ramirez was convicted of multiple counts of murder, sexual assault, and attempted murder, and while he was sentenced to death, he passed away in 2013 due to complications secondary to B-cell lymphoma. On a rainy evening in November 1982, 20-year-old Rebecca Garde was walking home from work in Seattle when she accepted a ride from Gary Ridgway, the Green River Killer. While she worked as a telemarketer, Ridgway offered her some money to have sex with him, and Garde agreed. At her request, Ridgway showed her his employee ID for the company where he worked painting trucks before accompanying him to a wooded area to have sex. However, shortly after getting out this truck, Ridgway attacked the young woman, forcing her to the ground and attempting to strangle her. Incredibly, Garde managed to get free from her attacker and ran to a nearby home for help, leaving Ridgway behind with his pants around his ankles. While the young woman knew where her would-be killer worked, she didn't report the assault for 2 years, largely because sex workers is illegal in Washington state. Ridgway wasn't arrested until 2001, and he was eventually convicted of murdering 49 teenage girls and women and given multiple life sentences for his crimes. Garde, who could have easily been one of the Green River Killer's victims, later said, "I got lucky and I was able to get away and run for help." On July 14, 1966, Richard Speck broke into a Chicago townhouse shared by several student nurses, eventually murdering all of the women inside the home, except for Corazon Amurao. Amurao hid under a bed while Speck took 8 of her fellow nurses one by one into another room where he strangled or stabbed them to death. After raping and murdering Gloria Davy, his final victim, Speck fled the crime scene, but he was arrested a few days later. He tried to kill himself and was admitted to a Chicago hospital, where a doctor recognized the wanted killer from a sketch created with the help of Amurao, the only survivor of the attack. Amurao testified at Speck's trial in April 1967, and when she was asked to identify the person who murdered 8 of her friends, she got up from the witness box, crossed the courtroom, and stood directly in front of Speck. Pointing directly at the mass murderer, Amurao said, "This is the man." Speck was convicted and sentenced to death for his crimes, while Amurao went on to become a nurse, wife, mother and grandmother. Speck's sentence was eventually changed to life in prison, and he died of a heart attack in 1991 while in police custody. Decades after the attack, Amurao attributed her miraculous survival to divine intervention, saying, "God was so nice." On November 9, 1986, 17 years old Kate Moir was kidnapped by David and Catherine Burney, a married couple who had already abducted and murdered 4 women and girls ranging in age from 15 to 31. Moir was taken to the Burney's home in Willagee, Australia, where David repeatedly raped the teenager at knife point as his wife Catherine watched. She even took notes about the brutal sexual assaults. The following morning, David went to work, leaving Moir at home with Catherine. When a visitor came to the couple's home, the 17-year-old who Catherine had failed to restrain managed forced open a window in the bedroom where she was being held captive. She knocked on the doors of 3 of the nearest houses, discovering the Burney's neighbors weren't home, until she found a man outside of a store who immediately drove Moir to the police station. When Moir later recounted her first night as a captive in the Burney's home, she said, "I had a 200% chance of dying and 5% chance of getting away." Thanks to Kate's brave escape, David and Catherine were convicted of multiple murders and they were given life sentences for their crimes. David killed himself in prison in 2005, while Catherine was denied parole in 2007. Moir has dedicated her life to advocating for victims' rights, demanding truth in sentencing and asking the courts to deny parole for sex offenders and people who commit premeditated murder. Please put any opinions and thoughts in the comment section. They always generate an interesting dialogue. If you found my video interesting, please follow my channel and hit the bell for being informed about the upcoming video. Thanks for watching.